Welcome to yet another episode of Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harbinda Narula on BW Wellbeing World. My guest today is Rahul Dev, a supermodel of his times and someone who turned into a fine actor, someone who is spiritual despite being a part of modern day lifestyle. Rahul and I have two things in common. One, he is a senior of mine from my school, St. Columbus. And second is we are both blessed to have the grace of our spiritual master Tarneiv Ji in our lives. Rahul, I have known about you and Gurudev Tarneiv Ji for a few years now, but when I met you recently in Mumbai, I was enlightened to understand how your life has been touched by the grace of Tarneiv Ji. Thank you so much for joining me today for
You're
Wellbeing
welcome.
Wednesday to understand how spirituality touches our lives and also more about Tarneiv Ji and his grace and how it is turning our lives into what we are experiencing today. Rahul, my first question to you is why don't you tell us a little bit about how did you come to know about Tarneiv Ji and how were you drawn towards him as a spiritual guide and mentor?
Okay, I'll rewind back in time. I'd lost my wife in 2009, May 16th. And after that, there was a period of intense suffering, then grappling with multiple roles, single parenting, which I'd never done really because my work take me all across the world and all across the country. So there would be times when I would be away for like 20 days, 25 days, come back home, make special appearances. Again, it would be time to sort of pack the bag, then leave again for the next outdoor to film. So one was that. So son was really, really small. Uh, and it was very unexpected. So December, we got to know that she has cancer. May 16th, she was not there. December of 2008, we got to know. So it was very, very sudden. And then that whole period, I was part of 13 projects that year. I completed 11 of them post. In fact, I remember after the Chotha, I had to go, just leaving one child you have with her sister. And I had to fly to, I think Mauritius is where I went to. I was filming for Blue and I had to complete that film because there were dates of other actors, Sakshay, Sanju, and it was Zayed and Lara. And I mean, frankly, a lot of things I don't remember from that time because it was very forgettable. So you can well imagine that being in a nuclear family in Bombay City, just three of us, the main, so to say, peg who joins the family together, the glue, so to say, of the family, the backbone of the family in terms of care and all of that, just goes away. And then one thing led to the other. My mother was kind enough to come across, and those days, because of a non-rational side, to the mind, uh, just coming to terms with life per se and all of that. I was not a very rational son either. I was a very sincere parent, but I didn't know how to parent. So there were countless mistakes I was making all the time. And it was a sort of helpless situation. And then I think by 2011, I met my fashion photographer friend, Tarun Kewal. He mentioned that, why don't I speak with him? Then he mentioned me of another master, so to say. The experience with that particular person wasn't really a very good one. I mean, I was very dissatisfied meeting that master. Uh, then there was another master. So, there was a quest. I knew that this is a situation beyond me. So I could recognize that. And I knew that I needed some, so to say, divine intervention to put life in order. And that divine intervention came in the form of Sri Tarneiv Ji. I'm indebted to him. So words fail. Words, I mean, what can you say? Words fail because, I owe not only this very life, I owe my career to him. He gave me just a lot of love, a lot of his time, personal time. I was invasive is an understatement. And to someone who has a very, very private life, he allowed me in the confines of that private life. I could spend days with him in that time. Also, just it was so destiny took our guru from, he was based out of Canada in those days. And he came to India for his 40th birthday. So 19th of July, 2013 is when I had met him first time at the Delhi airport. And as the whole conspiracy would have it, anything with him is not regular. Tarun Kewal told me, then I remember another fashion photographer friend of mine, Hemant Khandelwal, who's also a Belly practitioner, came across, shot some images with me for some magazine at my home in Delhi. He also mentioned him. Then it was eventually my dear friend Atul Kasbekar in Bombay. We were at his studio. And Atul said, "Yeah, why don't you speak with me?" And by the time, I think I had had enough of this whole suffering. This is prior to 2013. So, he sent me messages from 1, 2, 3 photographer friends. He sent me a message from another dear friend, JJ Valaya. He said, "Yaar, unse baat kyun nahi karta yaar?" So it was all going across to that. Each time, what was probably stopping me was that he's based out of Canada. I couldn't imagine that, for the Supreme Lord, he doesn't need to be based out of any country to reach you. He's omnipresent, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient, he's most loving. So, just so much love, so much kindness, and so much direction. So I would say he's practical to the world of today. He always says one thing, that the God is not punishing God. He's a very loving God. If there is a God, the only thing he can do is, or she can do, gender being no bias, that he just wants, or she just wants your best. Doesn't want you to suffer. Wants you to be loved, to reach your highest potential in whatever you are choosing in terms of the worldly choosing. And he wants also the best for your well-being, of the body, of the spirit, of the mind. So I don't know, it just simply resonates because that's the way he is.
Got it.
He just knows everything. If I have to say that he knows about this conversation that is happening right now on Zoom, it's not an exaggeration. Both of us know it. I remember going to the airport to see him. I went to receive him with my son. The only question my son had for me, I remember the night before, I just met my second innings in life, which is with the lovely Mugdha. And luckily for me, in fact, she's even a more ardent sort of follower than me.
Yes.
She just goes to all her length and the breadth and all of that. So I think that is one thing we both have in common. We have his grace in common. So she was home, and I'd met her just that month, earlier in the month, in July 2013. And then I asked my son that, I think I have someone who can help us, who can put all our problems at ease. So would you want to meet him? The only thing I remember as a very young child, he asked one thing only. He said, "How, Papa?" So I said, "Beta, even I don't know, it was a very logical question, but I just knew that, Meanwhile, I'd made the first initiative to reach out to him from Atul's studio, Atul Kasbekar's. And I'm deeply indebted to him. I made that first call to him from there. There was no response on the other side. I had a BlackBerry in those days, the ball BlackBerry. And strangely, after that, a series of messages would sort of reach me, which had affection and which just knew me at that point in time, inside out, more than I would know myself, more than what I would know my feelings. So I was just so very blessed, and I'm so very thankful to him. I mean, frankly, there's no word which would be enough to thank him, because there is no word. I mean, what can you say? भगवान के लिए कैसे आप धन्यवाद कर सकते हैं? कर नहीं सकते.
So Rahul,
Go on. So we met him at the Delhi airport.
Yes.
He asked me one more thing. I'd met him in the 90s at a friend Tarun Keval's wedding. Briefly, that's where Atul had introduced us. I was a young man. He was very, very young. I don't know whether he was 20 also. So, because this was a hiatus, and I was meeting him in 2013 from the 90s. I think 96 or 97, and then, straight away 13. So time had elapsed. My son had asked me one more logic. How will you recognize it? So it was a good question, but I just knew he would recognize me if I failed to do so. And the flight was a little delayed. It was after 12. So it was actually the 20th post in the AMRs of the 20th. And I saw him walking out. And from there itself, there was a whole lot of people who had come to receive him with garlands, rose garlands, because he loves roses, because he fills life with roses, and he makes life rosy. And he just waved out and says, "Kaise ho Rahul?" Just from far. So he's divine. He doesn't need to see one Rahul, or doesn't need to, And that's when I followed him to his parents' home that night. And subsequent to that visit in Delhi, every day, I don't know what was it that was drawing me. I would just go from my place to his parents' place every single day after leaving my son's school. And it was quite a drive. But I would just feel not complete without seeing him that day. And very, very fortunately for me, it was his 40th birthday celebration. He was in India for that. And we celebrated along with a whole lot of followers, practitioners, and it was a beautiful, beautiful evening. And I remember it was time for him to leave. So it was a heartbreaking moment that. But he had promised me that he would come back. And he would come back for a few years. And true to that word, he came back, I think, end September, October. No, it was in September actually he came back, because I remember my birthday falls in that time. My son's birthday falls in beginning of October. So we celebrated my son's birthday at his parents' home with the Lord himself sort of gracing it. So it was beautiful. So that was how this started.
You got it. And Rahul, can you share any one transformative moment from Gurudev that significantly impacted your spiritual journey and helped you bounce back?
Yeah, one moment is difficult to share, because this is like a blessing of a countless moments. So I can't just say right from the time he's how the Lord attracts Krishna. How will he be? I don't know how he'll be, but for me that is him. And he's the Lord incarnate himself. So how you just are mesmerized looking at the Lord. Imagine if you are going to a mandir or a masjid or a gurudwara or the church, and your feelings take over, they're overwhelming, because something you feel in there. It was like the atmosphere, your own feelings, and this sort of mix up, and you left with one experience. But I mean, I wouldn't say tangibly I met somebody there. So I mean, here I am getting the opportunity to meet someone tangibly who can hear my problems tangibly. Uh, Now I know that I don't have to speak out things to him. I don't have to send him long messages. I mean, I still send him messages, but at that time I remember my messages were like essays. I mean, that because everything, like moving from Bombay to Delhi was a move. So everything was a change, a pretty radical change for someone who was well set into the business. I was 80 films old when this happened. So it was something professionally completely new to me, not doing anything. And then making gyms for a livelihood. And because that's what I like. And then the gyms bombing, imagine, someone known for fitness partnered with another person known for fitness, Milind Soman. And our gyms are just not taking off because it's a business, and we were just passionate exercise people, and we wanted people to take up exercise. I mean, I still love it when people exercise, because I honestly feel it's like a great blessing that we carry this human body, and it's everyone's duty to look after it. Because when you don't look after it, what happens is you end up with a doctor, you end up sick, you end up in hospital, and it's just not the same. And what resonated another of his teachings with me was that he always lays the emphasis on, so even if it's an experience of, say, seeing him. I mean, one thing is for sure, if it is not for this tangible body, will you experience that happiness, that energy, that love? To Will you be in a position to receive it? You can't. So so that's the basic thing. I mean, I've heard things about the soul and read things about all of that. But यार मेरा वो experience है नहीं. जो सच है वो यही है, अगर मैं carefully देखूं उसको, तो वो सच यही है कि यार वो चीजें मैंने देखी नहीं है. सोल कहाँ है मैं कह नहीं सकता. हाँ, एक सब बोलते हैं उसमें, and of course I'm very sure it's there. I'm very sure होगा. But क्योंकि मेरा experience नहीं है, so I mean I can't say for sure. But with him, I know it's a for sure experience. So I think that's probably the difference between a living master and a master that you're putting faith in who's not there anymore. And of course, I'm not saying that I'm belittling a master who's not there. They're all very similar to each other. But in living, because I'm a human being made of flesh, blood, emotions, and a brain which constantly ticks, then naturally, you know what I mean. It's always like you've been in college with him for a year or so you would have had your experiences. So यार ऐसा चलती गई जिंदगी, और इन्होंने मुझे शुरुआत ही में, मुझे याद है जो पहला ट्रिप था इनका, उसी में कहता है these are not for you, the name is not right for you. तो I said, yeah, the name is such a beautiful name. He says, ये नेम आपके नाम के साथ नहीं यार. तो कहते हैं ना, हर कला में पूरे हैं, चाहे वो ध्वनि हो, नेम, चाहे वो साउंड हो, the divine melody that we chant, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which he says is a द्वादक्षरी मंत्र है, 12 syllables हैं इसमें, और ये मंत्र के उच्चारण से, in the way that we chant, because it happened to him in his suffering. It happened to him in the way he sort of recites it, sings it, whatever I might call it, which is all there in the documentary I tried to put together with his grace. I mean, I've never gone behind the camera. I've had no interest behind the camera ever. In fact, I don't even check the monitor once I give a shot. A lot of actors like to look at themselves going back in, ki yaar sab theek thaak hai. I put that trust in the cameraman and the director, because I mean, I'm just serving a purpose. Ki I have to make that scene work in the way the director is visualized in my profession. And of course, add my 2 bits to it if he allows it. And if it enhances the scene, improvise it a bit to enhance the creativity that was thought of and make that creativity larger. But if you say that, am I interested in putting together things? So,
But Rahul, can you share how the chant came about? The
see,
the
the
way.
chant, how it came about is very, very important. I think that's the main thing. More than my experiences, I think what is really important is his experience, because he's a gift, I think, to every human being. He's a gift to anyone and everyone who's suffering or is in any kind of problem, because he's just duty bound. I've seen when I've seen him over 10 years. So even if I mean, I can't observe him because, ये क्या कह सकता हूँ ना भगवान के बारे में, but ये है कि even if I put myself objectively far and look at him just purely, यार वो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि फर्ज है उनका कि यार लोगों को प्यार करना, वो फर्ज है उनका कि किसी को कोई यार प्रॉब्लम ना हो. It's he's duty bound that this person shouldn't suffer. This person is going through a lot. Yaar, can I make that life easier for him or her? Can I make this child's life better? So anyone and everyone, I've seen incidents which will just make you weep. Unfortunately, I mean, क्या करें यार, भावना ऐसी आ जाती है उस time पे. You get so overwhelmed and taken in with just the sheer goodness about which you read in the books. That एक ऐसा ध्रुव तारा था, फिर उसने याद किया विष्णु जी को, फिर वो प्रकट हो गए. All those beautiful stories. My mother actually was the first person who taught me those stories. प्रहलाद थे और फिर ऐसे उनको मारना चाहते थे, उनके बस पगला गए थे, उनके जो भी थे, वो हिरण्य कश्यप, एंड फिर वो दिन में न रात में विष्णु that form, or Lord Ram coming down in Banvas. So he also maintains one thing that I've sometimes relate to that one thing, that only in a period of intense suffering, which is not that it will not take place, that yearning for the Lord or your realization, if it's not suffering, because he also adds that कई बार संगत से होता है, but संगत किसकी, जिसने ये सच्चाई रियलाइज की हो. तो मेरी संगत नहीं, संगत उनकी, बिकॉज ही इज अ रियलाइज्ड, अगर सोल कोई कहे वो कह सकता है, रियलाइज्ड ह्यूमन बीइंग कह लो वो कह सकता है, डिवाइन ह्यूमन बीइंग कह लो वो कह सकता है, मिस्टिक है, बट मेरे हिसाब से आई मीन आई कैन नॉट अंडरस्टैंड हिम एवर, though he's so simple to understand. I mean, he's just love. It's like, for me, it's like a form of love. I mean, the word love just sort of sharma jayega. It's not complete. I feel when I look at him. I mean, that is what is love. He's like a parent. He's like your friend. He's like your guru. He's your guide. He's your brother. He's your sister. He's your mother. I mean, in all kinds of facets, he's complete. He's your everything. वो क्या है यार, वो एक है वो, से सब कुछ है, वो पूरे के पूरे हैं. तो इस मंत्र का ये है कि कमिंग बैक टू द डिवाइन मेलोडी, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, which is so important. He was born in a Sikh family, we all know, and then while growing up he was always drawn to Lord Krishna. So his love for Lord Krishna would make him try different chants. चाहे वो कृष्ण की अलग अलग चैंट्स हो, चाहे वो और कोई मंत्र हो. मुझे याद है जब मैं शुरू में मिला था, उन्होंने कहा था कि यार तुम्हारी फैमिली दी ना ध्वनि राम है, राम वो जो सब में है रमा हुआ. And he told me to chant Ram in X amount of, whatever he told me. I couldn't do it, though it was not so difficult when I look back, but that's how it was. And then वो ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय का मेन जो है, जो उनको ध्वनि मिली भी, वो तब मिली, वो काशी में एक सेंट थे. It was just like a by chance meeting with a saint in Uttara and he suggested him the chant. And when he started saying Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva very early in his journey, it sort of did something for him. And then his Guruji was Krishnananda Ji Maharaj, and he asked him, okay, is this chant correct? So he Guruji pointed out that yes, this will work for you. So, when he says a guru has a role, he never says anything which frankly I think he has not tried. I mean, he's divine. We would feel यार वो तो खुद divine है. उनको क्या गुरु की जरूरत है? तो भी उनके गुरु थे कोई. Or when he speaks about his gurus or writes something about them, it moves you. यार. लगता है कि बहुत इनकम्प्लीट डिवोशन है. उनको देखें और उनको समझने की कोशिश करें, लगता है यार डिवोशन में बहुत पीछे हैं. क्योंकि जब वो अपने गुरु के बारे में बोलते हैं और इस प्यार से बोलते हैं, फिर आई रिमेम्बर हिम आल्सो सेइंग दैट he asked him and he said to reach the chant you need a guru. So Tarneiv Ji asked him that can you be that guru, but somehow he says it's matlab, he indicated that that guru is someone else, and that guru was not a living guru. Baba Neem Karoli is not a, at that time. And so he was meditating one day and it came to him that it's him. And he acknowledges that. I mean, for a human being, you might feel, yaar, ye to kabhi, to phir kyun aisa? And then one thing led to the other. Before that Uttarakashi incident, I remember he had gone to a mandir in Chennai. And he was so much caught up with, that कि क्या ध्वनि होनी चाहिए, क्या बोलूं मैं, ये बोलूं या ये बोलूं या ये बोलूं. So the importance of the melody is this. So out of nowhere, the altar of the mandir was way ahead. Way ahead. Like you were sitting in the middle somewhere and you can see the altar many, many feet away. And here, there is no way for a flower to fall upon you. So a flower fell out of nowhere upon him. I mean, he's always been miraculous. You've experienced those things in college. There was his growing up days. So, जैसे Lord Krishna के हैं ना, बचपन के रंग, childhood के रंग, फिर जवानी के रंग, and how he kept on changing, and then eventually the Gita Sadhya, जो भी है, मुझे यार देखो उन सबकी, I mean, I'm not, I can't understand all of that because frankly, it's not my experience. I can read it like a storybook and I enjoy it. And I love it. I love it.
Can you share the experience when, he was bitten by the snake and how the chant?
So yeah, the vital experience is this, that from that flower, he met this saint in Uttarakashi. And he says that Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and that stayed with him when he chanted that in a kind of melody that came to him that time, jaise bhi wo bolte honge. He cross-checked that with, he wanted to ask his guru about it. He said it is, he indicated that, yes, but he said that you need a guru to realize. And, and then one day in his meditation, he realized that he was pointing towards God. And then he was chanting that all his years, because, all through childhood, also he's been chanting the Krishna chant all through his childhood and his growing up days because of his love for Lord Krishna. And then I remember in 2013, the melody sounded little different from what it sounds now. And so it was in 1994 on a trip to Uttarakashi where he met a saint, just coincidentally, and the saint casually asked him to chant the divine melody Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And somehow, he'd already been chanting various other chants and he tried a lot, in his spiritual quest. He's very, very special from birth. So the prophecy around his birth was when a lady Saint Nirmal Bhenji, she, uh, when she met his caring mother, uh, told auntie that, somebody very special is going to come her way. And it was not until a stormy late afternoon in Delhi in 1973, on the 15th of August, Tarneiv Ji's birth took place. So the whole process itself was mystical. And he's been a mystic ever since. And he had a very, very strong pull and affection towards Lord Krishna. Uh, his energy is similar to that of Lord Venkateshwara, which is also a form of Krishna. And then in 1994, he met with a saint, just like a chance meeting with a saint in Uttarakashi, with a saint casually asked him to chant the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which is a Dakshari mantra. It's got 12 syllables. And at that point, his heart was torn between what he was chanting at that point in time, because like I mentioned, he's tried various chants, and this new melody which he was enjoying a lot. And then it was a trip to a temple in Basant Nagar in Chennai, where he was sort of in his meditative sort of state, where he was really requesting, that what should be the melody for me, the correct one. And then he was away from the altar, and a flower fell upon him as a blessing from nowhere. It was like miraculous. And receiving the flower, he acknowledged the mantra. And from there on, he started chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Later, when he met with his Guruji, his guru, he fondly calls him Guruji, and Krishnananda Ji Maharaj, he indicated that mantra is correct for him, but he would need a guru to reach wherever that mantra had to take him. And then in his meditative state, it came to him that Guru was Baba Neem Karoli. And he always acknowledges that, though they physically, if you see the dates of births, Baba's passing year 73 and Tarneiv Ji's advent into the world 73, very, very close proximities. So, they can be conjecture, like, it's the same, so, it can be anything, but frankly, this is. And then it was ever since he was chanting the divine mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So when I met him in 2013, and a lot of the Belly practitioners who met me, who've been there for very long, much before me, they all say that, the melody was in a different rhythmic pattern at that time. The arrangement of the melody was little different. My observation is not the best, but yes, it was different. It was sets of twos, I think, in those days. And then on one fateful night in September of 2017, he was bit by a deadly viper. And the viper, that particular species, the doctor identifies as the second most poisonous in the globe. So naturally, it was an emergency, and his sister Avya Didi, she called upon, the ambulance. The ambulance came, but instead of being a large regular ambulance, it was a small Omni vehicle. So, the heart sinks, that at the sign that, and in the first place, in Bangalore city, a snake biting him is like completely unforeseen. It's not like some village or some green, like a paddy field, where snakes exist. But once I remember walking with him in Bangalore, he had mentioned, Rahul, kisi na kisi nu to katna si. To main keh to mainu kat le. He heard the hissing sound, everything. For somebody divine who helps us meet our problems much ahead of their time, and who knows everything about everything. He's omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. So, but I think the melody had to come in that kind of suffering. I mean, it's all very well for us to say, oh gosh, a snake bite, but एक ऐसे snake bite से कुछ seconds में आदमी can lose their life, and life is so fragile. But the vehicle started, Didi was sitting in it. There was a bridge they had to cross on the way to the hospital. The bridge was traffic jammed. I mean, there was a jam of traffic there. What had happened from the time he was taken into the ambulance? He constantly kept chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. So when he tells others that this is a divine melody and it can take you through your period of suffering, it's not that he is doing something else. It's a very, very practical experience that he's sharing. We are blessed that he's sharing that experience with us. And how it got evoked through his human body was in that incident, the rhythm changed. It was spoken in the sense of, it was chanted in the sense of the first two Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Twice you have to call upon the Lord. The Lord, come, show me your divine face, show me your beautiful face. I want to see you, I want to meet you. So it has to be a very, very calling from all your feelings in it, sari bhavnaएं रख के कि यार पुकारना है उनको. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And then the third one, the third Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is spoken as if the Lord is with you. And it's like a celebration. So every time you're chanting this, he says minimum 20 minutes is very, very beneficial for starters. So every time you're doing this, your rhythm of calling is similar. The first two times you're calling out to the Lord. The third time the Lord is physically with you. It's like a celebration. And you continue the pattern for 20 minutes. And in that journey, Didi described it that, in the traffic jam, the miracle which took place was, how would the ambulance reach the hospital? Strangely, a whole lot of onlookers came across, and they literally were going to hold the ambulance and put it on the other side. Now imagine if it was a huge big bus, like how ambulances are. Would that be possible? And all he was saying to her all this while was, "Kithe pahunche?" And she was saying, her heart was in her mouth, and real sister loves him so, so much. And how would you feel in that point in time? I mean, I can't. I mean, she's just too strong, and she's blessed, so she's the way she is. But you need somebody really strong to do this, and then वो था ना, यमुना अलग अलग हो गई थी और कृष्ण जी और उनके जब फ्लड्स में आए थे, बीच में से रास्ता बन गया था. Literally it was like that. The traffic, before they could lift, before these guys could lift, the traffic just parted. I don't know how it parted. I mean, he's miraculous. वो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. ये भी एक लीला है उनकी. रास्ता बन गया, सारा ट्रैफिक ऐसे गायब हुआ, ओझल हुआ जैसे कि पहले ट्रैफिक था ही नहीं. It was the worst jam ever. He reached the hospital in time. They took him in. He was given the anti-venom and in time. Even in the small vanity, the anti-venom. So, so everything happened smoothly. And Didi was waiting in one place, and next morning he said, "Kyo kithe bulao?" And all he said to her was casually, "Kithe si tu?" So there's no making big out of any situation. So when he says that any situation is there, he says try and be in the present. And also he says that, present moment रहता नहीं वहाँ, निकलता रहता है. As you and I speaking, if we say कि यार ये present है, ये निकल जाएगा. But इनका एक ऐसा मानना है कि जो sensations है हमारे शरीर के अंदर, जो palm में हमें feeling आती है, या हमारे belly में हमें feeling आती है, या chest में हमें feeling आती है, वो sensations हर किसी के अलग अलग हैं. One thing common is that they are your own sensations, and you make best friends with them. In 2010, when he was going through a period of intense suffering, there would be hours he would be submerged in the holy belly. Hours hours would pass, and he would still be at his belly, trying to feel, just trying to feel. And of course, when our life goes back and forth, or is in anguish or in suffering, I mean, if I have to say practically, to practical life, initially I could not do it at all, because the mind would play, the thoughts would keep on conjuring up, and it would go back and forth. So he's saying, but with his grace, because this can only come, I think, via grace, or with your, he says, uses the word regularly, honestness. So I'll borrow that from him. I mean, everything here is borrowed, everything is his. So your honestness, your sincerity, your love for knowing कि यार देख, मुझे यार ये suffering नहीं चाहिए यार, मुझे चाहिए खुशी. I need happiness, I need joy, I need to be happy. Enough of this suffering. वो कई बार बोलते हैं ना हमारे सत्संगों में. तो वहां पे ना कुछ होता है यार, क्या होता है मैं कह नहीं सकता हूँ, कुछ हो जाता है. मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है कि यही आ जाते हैं, आते ही होंगे यार. Because he says that don't look at me like a human being, look at me as a form of energy. So even if he's in another country, तो we don't have to look at it like you and I कि यार बड़े दूर हैं. आता है वो feeling, आती है, मगर वो आती है. अभी क्या करें यार, इंसान है ना, आते ही मिस हिम कि यार दूर है बहुत. अब दूर है तो यार उन्होंने practices दी हैं. Feel of the body, coming to the feel of the sensations in the body. Feel of the palms is the easiest way, he says. Feel of the belly is the other way, he says. Feel of the chest, he says. और इस मेलोडी में ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय या किसी और मेलोडी में फर्क ये है कि इसकी जो इजाद हुई है, इसका बर्थ जो हुआ है, इसकी इंसेप्शन जो हुई है, इट्स अ वेरी वेरी ओल्ड मंत्र. गॉड नोज how old it is. Thousands of years, people say, God knows. It's the oldest Krishna mantra. But somebody needs to channel it for an experience, for the arrangement of the sound, the way the sound is said. Now, if you are able to say the sound in that particular way, he said that the Lord himself resides in it. And if you are able to say it with bhavna, with feelings, with all your feelings, with your heart inside it, whatever be your situation, however challenging it might be, it has to give in. Because the Lord is so big and so divine कि क्या है यार उसके लिए विडोअर है जो काम छोड़ के बैठा है, क्या है उसके लिए काम देना. ऐसा ये जा यार खुश रहे, जा यार तू भी खुश रहे. किसी को कैंसर है, तू भी जा यार खुश रहे. किसी को कुछ और तकलीफ है, लोअर बैक है, जा यार तू खुश रहे. So I have seen cases where he's solved disease. I mean, he's helped people with disease. He's helped people with problems. He's helped you with your. We see that in his beads of faith. If you just press beads of faith on YouTube and type his name alongside Tarneiv Ji, Tarneiv Ji, lots of links and lots of experiences open up immediately. So there are all kinds of. So there's something about belly meditation. There's something about the divine melody, how it's supposed to be spoken. So all that is there on YouTube. All that is there on Instagram channel belly_group, and it's very organic. There are portions of his voice, of his satsang. There are portions of him physically. I mean, I just wish the kind of happiness it gave me, the kind of love he has given me, I mean, I can't be selfish and not share it with people. I mean, I really, really, really would want people to enjoy this, enjoy his grace, enjoy his affection, enjoy his love, you know, and just enjoy life.
राहुल, उनकी core philosophy में one is this chant and the other thing is the belly meditation. Can you share something about belly meditation and is that the core philosophy, core teaching, and how does it resonate with you so deeply?
ऐसा मैंने देखा है कई बार इन एन एजिटेशन, वो कहते हैं कि यू नीड अ स्टॉप. मुझे काफी गुस्सा आता है, और उस जमाने में तो जब ऊपर नीचे हो जाती लाइफ तो काफी गुस्सा आता था. कई बार मैं इनको भी कहता हूँ यार कि इतने साल हो गए, मैं क्यों आई एम नॉट एबल टू स्टॉप. क्यों नहीं होता कि उस वक्त एक इम्पल्स जब आता है ना, आप कुछ बोल रहे होते हैं विच यू डोंट मीन, बट यू फील बैड लेटर कि क्या निकल गया यार मुझसे, है ना, होता है ना कई बार. आपको एक सिंपल एक्सपीरियंस देता हूँ यार. आप गाड़ी में जा रहे हैं, ठीक है, ट्रैफिक लाइट आई, कोई आपसे पैसे मांगने आए, जब आपके पास होते हैं आप दे देते हैं. कई बार आपके पास नहीं होते हैं और एक फोन कॉल पे भी हैं आप, ड्राइवर गाड़ी चला रहे हैं, आप एक वर्क फोन कॉल अटेंड कर रहे हैं और कोई ठक 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 विंडो पे कर रहा है. कई बार आप इरिटेटेड भी हो जाते हैं, जबकि लुक एट द प्लाइट ऑफ दैट पर्सन, कि उस बेचारे को आपका जोर के खिड़की को खटखटाना पड़ रहा है, राइट. सो आई टुक अ लीव फ्रॉम माय फ्रेंड तनुज गर्ग्स बुक. वो क्या करते हैं, बिस्किट के पैकेट्स लेके चलते हैं गाड़ी में हमेशा. तो इवन इफ ही डजंट हैव चेंज, सो वो क्विकली ना, a biscuit packet can be given to whoever's talking to. So I think that's a good way to start. It's a good way to contribute. And then in terms of the belly, वही है यार, वो कहते हैं ना स्टॉप करो. तभी वो कहते हैं एक 12 बजे का समय उन्होंने दिया हुआ है, नून स्टॉप सबके लिए. आप कुछ भी कार्य कर रहे हो उस 12 बजे बस जस्ट फील योर राइट पाम. किसी भी विषय में हो, जब मैं अब शूटिंग भी करता हूँ, it just what it helps me do sometimes at work is it enhances my awareness. उस टाइम पे होता है, हेल्प होती है. ऑफ कोर्स उसके बाद मैं भूल जाता हूँ, उसके बारे में भूल जाता हूँ. बट समटाइम्स आई वंडर यार कि ये एक लंबे वक्फे के लिए कर पाया, 1 घंटे के लिए, 1.5 घंटे के लिए, तो कैसा रहेगा यार काम करते करते. वो कैसा निकलेगा अंदर से, वो सरस्वती क्या निकलेगी एक सीन करते हुए, दैट यू आर अवेयर ऑफ व्हाट यू आर सेइंग, यू आर अवेयर. है ये फिल्म की लाइन है, बट क्योंकि आप फिल्म्स में बनाए एक्ट, आई टेल यू वन थिंग दैट वी ऑल डू, वी राइट 4 W's, हु, व्हेन, व्हाई, व्हाट, इन टर्म्स ऑफ कैरेक्टराइजेशन. तो यार रियल लाइफ में तो मैं टी टोटलर और नॉन स्मोकर हूँ. अब पिक्चर में हो सकता है कोई किरदार ऐसा हो जो कि शराब भी पीता है, स्मोक भी करता है. ऑफ कोर्स इट विल बी मेक बिलीव, इट विल बी लाइक लाइक एप्पल एपी या कुछ मिला के उसमें पानी डाला होगा. बट हाउ डू यू एक्ट दैट आउट in a real way, not in a caricature way, not कि ऐसे तो झूम के, not like in a more believable way as you've seen in real life. For that you need a sense of observation. So you need to, for any actor, I think it's extremely important to observe other people. So when you observe different people or different characters, shopkeeper हो सकता है, लहजा आपका हो सकता है, हरियाणवी का एक लहजा है. I'm not हरियाणवी, but with this grace in a series recently released on Amazon, जो आप बोल रहे हैं कि क्या होता है प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में, वो ऑब्जर्वेशन से ये फायदा हुआ मुझे यार कि एक, मैं हूँ दिल्ली से, मगर जब मैंने दिल्ली को छोड़ा था तो गुड़गांव इतना पास नहीं आया था. 96 I left Delhi. It's not so much of mixed Haryanvi, Punjabi existence in Delhi. It became after that, after that it became that NCR and all that. So I watched YouTube in it. I even heard a few Haryanvi songs. It was written as Apte, which is a Marathi character. Then I requested the writer, मैंने कहा यार मैं आपटे कहाँ से लगता हूँ तुझे, मैं मराठी लगता हूँ तुझे. आपटे मतलब जो मैंने देखे हैं वो छोटे होते हैं कद में, मोटे होते हैं, थोड़े काले काले होते हैं. ब्यूटीफुल कलर, ब्लैक इज अ ब्यूटीफुल कलर, डस्क इज अ ब्यूटीफुल कलर. बट अभी आप मुझे बोल रहे हो आपटे, तो फिर क्या है कि मुझे बहुत चीटिंग करनी पड़ेगी उससे करीब आने के लिए, क्योंकि एक चेहरा वैसा दिया हुआ है, एक कद काट वैसा दिया हुआ है, आई कांट चेंज दैट. तो हमने कहा कि चलो सर, आई गिव हिम 4-5 ऑप्शंस, पंजाबी दिया था वो, तो उन्होंने कहा कि यार हरियाणवी कर दे, तो वो किया। तो जो आपका सवाल है बेली मेडिटेशन क्या हेल्प करती है ना, जब आप आते हैं ना बेली में, उसमें देखते हैं कि यार एक सेंसेशंस है, ब्यूटीफुल सेंसेशंस, डिवाइन सेंसेशंस, ठीक है। यू कुड बी सफरिंग दैट डे, you could be in anguish that day, you could be nervous that day. For any child who's writing exams, you just feel your palms. कई बार होता है लोगों को एमआरआई कराते हुए घबराहट होती है, वो जो मशीन होती है ना उसके अंदर लेट के जाना पड़ता है, then it's like an enclosure. So if you're suffering from claustrophobia, I can't name a friend who, but he tried this and he came out happily. So these are practical life situations. I mean, nothing I'm saying that मैंने ऐसे सुना है, और यही वो प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंसेस हमें देते हैं। जहां मैं कोशिश करता हूँ, एक आर्ग्यूमेंट हो रहा है, फंस गए दो, ठीक है, फंस गए दो लोग यार, अब उसमें वो कहते हैं फर्स्ट स्टेप इज द लास्ट स्टेप। फर्स्ट स्टेप क्या है? अगर उस वक्त आपने रोक लिया अपने, वो फर्स्ट स्टेप हो गया आपका। अगर इनको फॉलो कर पाए, अगर उस वक्त हो गया आपसे स्टॉपिंग, यू स्टॉप योरसेल्फ, आर्ग्यूमेंट सीजेस। लास्ट स्टेप क्या होता है किसी भी आर्ग्यूमेंट में? आप नोट करिए, रोड पे भी नोट करिए, एक गाड़ी और एक ऑटो का थोड़ा वो हो गया लगना, माइनर स्क्रैप, दे वुड आर्ग्यू नो एंड्स, ऐसा आपकी गलती है, मेरी गलती है, ये है वो है, ठीक है, होता है। इवेंचुअली क्या होता है? लास्ट स्टेप क्या होता है? लास्ट स्टेप यही होता है, सब अपने अपने घर चले जाते हैं। तो स्टॉप ही किया ना उसमें भी, मतलब एंड में स्टॉपिंग ही होती है ना। और यदि वो ही स्टॉपिंग उनमें से एक शुरू में कर लेता है यार कि इस वजह से एक्नॉलेज जो भी हुआ है, तो उसमें यार एक तो बड़ा बन जाता है इंसान थोड़ा, और दूसरा दूसरे आदमी की जो डीप इनसिक्योरिटी होती है, इस केस में सबको ही इनसिक्योर फील करते हैं, क्योंकि ह्यूमन बींग्स का पार्ट है, इनसिक्योरिटी भी पार्ट है यार, गुस्सा भी उसका पार्ट है यार, लस्ट भी उसका पार्ट है यार, हर चीज ये हमारे, लव भी उसी का पार्ट है। अच्छा भी वही करता है इंसान, अच्छे अच्छे काम भी वही करता है, कंट्रीब्यूट भी वही करते हैं। लोग मॉन्यूमेंट्स बना देते हैं, मंदिर बना देते हैं, लोग साइंस को आगे ले जाते हैं। If there was no Narayan Murthy, there would be no Infosys. If there was no Mr. Tata, that 80% that he donates doesn't come through. His factory workers wouldn't be helped, almost Dundee like march from one place to the other, you know. So if there are no such philanthropers, society would be a very, very poor place to exist in. If everybody thought of, yaar, ek kuch karta hi hu bas. But for that, he says, you have to empower yourself. You have to do well in your life. You have to do well in your careers. Again, if you see that philosophy, फिर अगर मैं ही मांग रहा हूँ किसी से कुछ, ठीक है, तो am I in a position to give, or I'll always be knocking on someone's door? But suppose if I make good money, which a lot of films, unfortunately, वो है कि यार वो गरीब होता तो अच्छा होता है, अमीर होता तो कहीं वो हमारे जीन्स में भी है, कहीं हमारे लोग ऐसा कहीं बोलते हैं मनी इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट सर, बट अंदर से एक्चुअली क्या चल रहा होता है? विल यू वर्क विदाउट मनी? यू कैन नॉट, बिकॉज द वर्ल्ड नीड्स मनी। हॉस्पिटल पे लेके जाना आपको किसी को, उसके लिए पैसे चाहिए, बच्चों को स्कूल लेके जाना है, उसके लिए पैसे चाहिए। तो बहुत ही प्रैक्टिकली ये स्पिरिचुअलिटी को बताते हैं जो सही है, वो नहीं कि जो दिमाग में चल रहा है या ऐसे किताब में है मगर वो एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है किसी। So even the divine melody, which was his own experience, he has shared that कि यार ये मंत्र ऐसे बोलो, ये द्वोदाक्षरी मंत्र को ना ऐसे 3 तरीके से बोलो, क्योंकि इस भावना से शायद उन्होंने बोला होगा उस टाइम, भाई इनके थ्रू एवो कहीं something special happened to him. If something special happened to him, he was always special from birth, but something even more special happened to him, he says. And the miracle was that, for example, reaching the hospital, being all right, hale hearty, with great health. So everything, and that's where it changed. And if you look at the belly, in his own suffering, he's there. He's resorting to the comforts of the holy belly. And he would spend hours mesmerized with it, mesmerized with the sensations. So I have seen in a couple of times where I've actually been graced by him to experience this कि यार कुछ एक एजिटेशन है या कुछ एक एंग्विश है या कुछ एक नर्वसनेस है यार ये यार सीन ना थोड़ा मुझे लग रहा है कि ऐसे करूं या ऐसे करूं या अच्छा यार उसका एग्जाम है आई जस्ट होप ऑल गोज वेल बच्चों को लेके लोग एंग्शियस होते हैं फिक्र होती है हर किसी को होती है कि कोई भी पेरेंट है वो ये नहीं कह सकता है उसे फिक्र ही नहीं है वो झूठ बोल रहा है या फिर वो बहुत कैलस है या वो करना ही नहीं चाहता है वो कैलस ही है इट्स जस्ट ऑटोमेटिक कनेक्शन द लॉर्ड मेड between you and your child. There'll be no mother or father in the world who will be living and they have a child and they will not be thinking about them at some point or the other. I'm not saying constantly, somebody will be more conscientious and be more holistic in their approach to make them blossom. Somebody will be less, less. So उसमें क्या होता है कि especially when you're interacting with them, you are supposed to give them a sense of security and you're supposed to hear them. मुझे हमेशा ये कहा करते थे हमेशा कहते थे यार लिसन टू हिम अभी आप सुन रहे हैं मेरी बातें इट्स अ ग्रेट क्राफ्ट इट्स अ ग्रेट आर्ट इट्स अ ब्लेसिंग यू कैरी तो अगर मैं आपकी बातें गौर से सुनूं दैट्स द ब्लेसिंग आई एम कैरी तो सिंपल चीजें हमें लगता है कि यार लिसनिंग क्या चीज है यार क्या लिसनिंग के लिए इतना इंपॉर्टेंट है कि लिसनिंग आप कभी भी नोट करें कहीं पे भी जाएं जब भी आपने किसी की बात सुनी है ना वो बात का रिजल्ट पता नहीं अच्छा ही हुआ यार मैं क्यों हुआ है मैं कह नहीं सकता
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल एक और चीज राहुल आपने जब ये बता रहे थे तनीव जी के बारे में वन ऑफ थिंग्स दैट आई हैव सीन अबाउट हिम वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट आई हैव हर्ड हिम स्पीक अबाउट कि
यार लाइट ठीक है मेरे चेहरे पे इतनी क्योंकि अंधेरा हो गया या आगे कर लो लाइट को
इट इज फाइन
ये बेटर है अभी
ठीक है परफेक्ट है सो वन ऑफ द थिंग्स आई हैव हर्ड हिम स्पीक उनके जब सत्संग होते हैं या कभी उन्होंने इंडिविजुअली भी बात करी है तो वो कहते हैं कि आपने मटेरियलिस्टिक वर्ल्ड जिसको हम बोलते हैं इससे दूर नहीं भागना है इसमें रह के आपको स्पिरिचुअलिटी एक्सपीरियंस करनी है यू डोंट हैव टू रन अवे फ्रॉम दिस इनफैक्ट he's always well dressed and you and I have seen that he insists that everybody should dress up well he is like you just explained कि आपको पैसा कमाना जरूरी है आपको अगर कुछ होगा तभी आप दे सकेंगे ठीक है ना सो इस एस्पेक्ट को हाउ हैव यू रिसीव्ड फ्रॉम Tarneiv Ji can you explain this philosophy of his for people who have not known him in the past
Now, see, मेरे को ना luckily because of the sphere of work I'm coming from, ना, there was always a sense of style. I just know that these clothes will look okay for this particular thing. Okay. Now, of course, you have stylists and a professional who send clothes for a certain occasion. But if you're a layman, एक तो क्या होता है जब आदमी खूब तैयार होके निकलता है, there's a eye for detail if you notice. Only if you have an eye you'll be able to dress up with interest. हर चीज में वो इंटरेस्ट लेते. If you're drinking coffee, a lot of times I just gulp it down. Okay. Now, if I had to savor every sip of it, espresso I love. So double shot आया, थोड़ा थोड़ा करके पिया. So a lot of people just two bottoms up to it. I just enjoy the smell and the whole thing. So you're able to enjoy the process. So it becomes like a celebration life. Every day becomes like a celebration. आज अस्पताल जाना है कोई बात नहीं यार कपड़े तो अच्छे पहन के जा सकते हैं तैयार तो होके जा सकते हैं शैबी जाने की क्या जरूरत है यार unless the role demands मेरे प्रोफेशन में हो सकता है कि एक शैबी इंसान प्ले कर रहे हैं वो अलग होगी या ये हो सकता है यार कि यू डोंट हैव इनफ मनी टू पे वेरी एक्सपेंसिव शर्ट वो भी ठीक है बट व्हाटएवर यू हैव you can they can be washed clean iron clothes so when you're turned out well it's always pleasing for the eye for whoever's looking at you. I mean if I have to look at it practically also Also, I think it also shows and indicates a sense of interest and keenness in life per se. So, in every way, I think it's 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 a it's a good thing only. And if we are saying that we are chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, इन्होंने कई बार तो यार वो कहते हैं कि अगर लॉर्ड कृष्णा होते थे आज, अगर आप कोई भी तस्वीर का रिप्रेजेंटेशन भी देखें उनका, गहनों से यू नो डेकोरेटेड होते थे. कहते हैं सुंदर तो इतने मोहित हो जाता आदमी, है ना, कि उनका चेहरा देख के खींचा जाता है. So attraction is one of his many, sides.
Before I let you go, how has Rahul of 25 years ago changed to Rahul of today? And what is the role of spirituality and his master's grace that has impacted this change to where you are today?
Yeah, probably 25 years ago, it was not a realization that all is grace only, that everything is grace. I'm saying if you're enjoying great health, also that is grace. If you're enjoying something, some success, that is also grace. Because until and unless you get some kind of suffering or setback, I mean, for a regular human being like me, you don't realize. I mean, a lot of people have realized the value of life after coronavirus. A lot of people have moved home from Delhi because of the pollution over there after coronavirus. A lot of people have started staying in outhouses in places where there's little fresher oxygen in India after coronavirus. Why? Because people in busy, the most populated country in the world, with crazy amounts of population in cities, with crazy amounts of vehicles and the pollution and all of that, suddenly saw empty streets. They could never even fathom or imagine in their wildest of imaginations that this can be a truth too. And for a long while, a lot of people left the world just because they couldn't get hospitals. A lot of people left the world because they couldn't get oxygen. A lot of people, after leaving the world, couldn't be cremated because the cremation grounds were filled. So, when you see all of that, or a drastic change, for me, the drastic change was losing of a partner. The drastic change was parenting somebody. The drastic change was my own, L5S1 at that point. So, वो सब में एक ही इंटरवेंशन थी, एक ही हाथ था मेरे ऊपर, वो था इनका. तो यार मैं तो ये ऑनेस्टली बोल सकता हूँ कि यार if I'm living today, if I'm healthy today, and if I'm enjoying great life today, from 25 years ago, I don't think I was so, I'm not saying I'm evolved. I'm more evolved compared to the 25-year-old Rahul. There's a very, very long road ahead. Long, very long. But I wish, ठीक है यार, every moment and every day as it comes is a learning. But luckily for me, or rather, most fortunately for me, and the biggest blessing for me is that learning now can come from someone who knows. It's not like a learning कि मैं अपने तीर तुक्के लगाता रहूं या किसी ऐसे से समझूं जिसको खुद ही बेचारे को वो डरा हुआ आदमी है या उसको खुद ही नहीं पता कि क्या बताना है ना. एक एक दो चीजें हैं यार, एक लाइफ है जनरल और एक आपका कार्य है, दोनों ही इम्पोर्टेंट है. तीसरा आपका शरीर भी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट. So when all three are in tandem, like you're spiritually strong also. So there's growth as a human being, there's growth at your work sphere, and there's growth in the way you are physically. I think then you enjoy naturally happier moments, you're emotionally stronger, you're able to spread joy and happiness in other people's lives, you're able to contribute at least. खुशी तो दे ही सकते हैं एक दूसरे को.
So Rahul, आपने तो बहुत क्लोजली उनके साथ टाइम स्पेंड किया है. आई हैव हैड द अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ द ब्लेसिंग ऑफ being around during the time when he was in college, and then reconnecting after a gap of almost like 2 decades. And एक चीज बड़ी यूनिक सी मेरे साथ जो मैंने एक्सपीरियंस करी है उनके साथ, कि जब भी जरूरत होती है या जब जरूरत महसूस होती है, वो कहीं ना कहीं से उनसे कोई कोई एक मैसेज या कोई चीज आ जाती है जिससे आपको रास्ता दिख जाता है. You know, whether it is just a message, whether he will just call up. Yeah, we know that it is very difficult to reach out to him, but वो अपने आप फोन करते हैं, अपने आप रीच आउट करते हैं. और जो आपने एक वर्ड यूज किया था, यू सेड सेलिब्रेट लाइफ, that is exactly what he teaches us to enjoy the process, enjoy every moment of presentness, because that present moment is just a moment, it will be a past in the next moment. Second thing, वो एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी का भाव आपके अंदर जगा देते हैं विदाउट बीइंग टफ, और बिना कुछ ज्ञान बांटे, मतलब प्यार से, जैसे कोई
यार
पेरेंट
तो बांटते ही नहीं है यार. See, that's what I
प्यार
love
से
about
जैसे
him.
आपको रास्ता दिखा देते हैं. तो कोई
And he makes everything small. In the sense कि कोई मुश्किल ही नहीं है, ऐसा ऐसा कर देते हैं.
so
तो
you use that right word, कि celebrate life, and whether it is, and taking interest in everything, everything, every person. And that is exactly what he does. So he walks the talk and shows you what needs to happen. That is what I have experienced with him. And I think, I can completely resonate with every word you spoke about him today. कि कहाँ से वो कैसे प्यार से सब कुछ आपके सामने एक खोलते जाते हैं रास्ते. So really thankful to you for sharing these.
यार I'm thankful to him to have created this. मतलब just अभी अब ये मीटिंग भी देखिए एक. I didn't know frankly what you do.
I know.
And we met at satsangs or we met there at we've never interacted before.
Correct.
And I know that you're from my school through your beads of it.
Yes.
The whole conspiracy, the way like we've been able to speak about him, that itself is a grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.